Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, the Big 12 has made its additions now for playing one another. What to do? Pods, divisions, battle royale, no holds barred cage match. Lots of ideas to dive into. Also, Brett McMurphy of the Action Network is making friends in West Texas. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to see you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. And thanks for making us your first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get them cast. Today's episode brought to you by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege or enter the promo code LockedOnCollege for a free hat with any purchase. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. That we promise you. Who is we? He's the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan, and Chris, great to be back with you once again, and plenty to get to here on today's episode as we will be diving into Red Raider football. We will chop up why Brett McMurphy is beginning such a 2023 love affair with Texas Tech and how we feel about that love, but also still kind of processing, I guess, some of the settled dust from this realignment whirlwind. And there are going to be some questions and conversations that are not going to be easy for the conference after these additions that are still yet to be had. And obviously, Chris, within a lot of these things, there is also advantage or possible disadvantage, I guess, to be had if you are a conference member. We'll just take one limb off of that big old tree here today and hit the scheduling front, because as you read there on the right side of your screen, I mean it sincerely. Now what is the question I have? Because not only are you in different territory than you have been recently, but you're in uncharted waters as far as the historical size of the conference in general. You've never had to deal with this many, and I'm really interested to see what they come up with. There are a ton of ideas obviously floating out there right now.
Yeah, and with a 16-team league, and I think that, you don't want to go with any less than 9 conference games a year. I can't imagine you would scale it back based on the TV contracts and all those things. You're just now, and these leagues are so big that you just don't play everybody. And so you have to figure out, okay, how do we set this thing up? What is because there's all different ways to look at it. We can come at it from what would we want, or what is best for Texas Tech. We can look at it for what is best for the league in getting the best team to the potential playoff and the conference championship games. And then you've got to please your TV partners as well with certain games that would be protected and regional and this and that.
I love your first one. I really like the one that involves my interest as a fan. What's good for the Red Raiders? What's good for the good guys?
Yeah, and I think, because I think what you'll hear is that, and these are conversations that I'm guessing are probably already happening or on the cusp of, because they've got to get this figured out rather quickly. And it's not an easy thing to figure out. It doesn't happen quickly. It's like trying to steer a battleship versus trying to steer a Sea-Doo. When you're trying to put all this together, because everybody's got their own opinion, everybody's got their own interests. And typically the way they do it, they'll kind of draft it out. They send all these drafts out, and then everybody kind of picks and chooses, but they've got to figure out the format first. And you do you going to go divisions, or are you going to go pods? With the division, you could put 8 teams in each division and do a north-south or an east-west, and then you could figure that out fairly easily. The problem with that I would have is that if you did that, that means you're playing really only 2 crossover football games every year, meaning you're going to see some of these teams in this league once every 4 to 8 years or whatever it is. And I don't, that part I don't like. I don't want to not see one of these conference members for a full election cycle or whatever it would be. I mean, that to me, that's ridiculous. So I really hope that they can figure out a way to create some pods, which for example, You could put Texas Tech, Baylor, TCU, and Oklahoma State in a pod. You're guaranteed that you're going to play those 3 teams in a home and home every year. And then you've got these other pods, and you could play some kind of crossover games with each one of the pods every year, and it just kind of rotates through. But you're still playing Baylor, TCU, and Oklahoma State every year, and that But there's a variety of different ways you can do this. 16's a round number. You're going to want to give everybody 9 conference games. And again, the TV networks will have kind of some say-so too. Plus, you want to make sure you protect some of the regionality to it. And that's why I kind of, if you went divisions or pods, you would kind of keep the teams in close proximity to each other. And you don't want to just have West Virginia playing Arizona every year. That doesn't make a lot of sense either. But I think there's a kind of a commonality that you could find that gets everybody mostly what they want. But it's also about trying to put your league in the best possible situation to spit out the top 2 teams to play in a conference championship game too. And it's easy. That's easy when you're just doing divisions. Hey, who won this division? Who won this division? Let's get after it. But as we saw with the Big 12 North and South, Texas Tech could have finished 3rd in the Big 12 South, and that really, in so many ways, was 3rd best in the Big 12 many years. And you don't get to play for a championship, and all those kinds of things. And that's not what is maybe best for the league in trying to get an entry or entries into the college football playoff. So it's going to be fascinating. These are massive conversations. I don't know what the right answer is. We all can have an opinion. And Calvin, I'd be curious kind of what your, opinion would be on that.
Well, first off, regionality in college sports, what's that got to do with the price of tea in China? I don't know that's a foreign word to me when you mention regionality. The other is just all about advantage or disadvantage for me as a Tech fan. What's good for the Red Raiders? Pods, division. Do I want to be a pod person? I don't know. I mean, you think about, all right, I want these protected games because they're exciting. They maybe are regional. Maybe you have history. Maybe it gets the blood flowing if it's Oklahoma State, Texas Christian, and Baylor. But just like you finished there with that thought, the thing I'm thinking first is, all right, well, how many times is that like 2 of the top 5 teams in the league or 3 or 4 of the top 5 teams in the league? It's Big 12 South heat, all over again, potentially, maybe not. I don't know. But you also think about then like out there on an island, what is it? Like Cincinnati, West Virginia, UCF, and Houston? Is UCF just winning that pod by 15 games every year? I mean, somebody's getting the short and long end of it, right? There's not going to be a perfect solution. So that's just got to be included. And I guess you just figure out how much you can sort of stomach of that sort of thing. But look, I'm here to be entertained as a fan. I want to root for a team that is here to compete and is not ducking and dodging, worried about manipulating schedules to protect you from your own deficiency when it comes to success as a program. So I guess I'd just say bring it all on. The divisional aspect, I suppose, is probably where the side I'm going to err on, just because that whole thing about missing opponents for that period of time, which you've already got that going on in some other leagues, that doesn't jive with me real well. So if you could avoid that to a degree, I think I may just go back to something more divisional. But I got to tell you, the pod person theory is just all theory. I haven't experienced that, so I can't really say firsthand, like throughout a year, of some of the pros and cons, what that would feel like.
Yeah, because let's talk it out. Like if you were to do the pod thing, and you're going to have to come up with something similar for basketball as well. Like how are we doing this? And we kind of saw. That's just my word for it. I don't know if there's another way to kind of, groups, or I don't think you would have 4 divisions within a league, but that's just kind of what the word that I choose to describe it.
That's a quad. Those are quad.
Yeah, there you go. 4 quads.
It's all semantics, whatever.
We've got quadrant divisions.
Just don't name it leaders and legends, whatever you do.
Exactly. Utah, BYU, the Arizona schools, that seemingly makes a ton of sense. Because they're all going to want to play each other, I would think. And I know the Pac-12 schools may be like, we don't want to deal with BYU. I don't know, but then Colorado with the Kansas schools and Iowa State, and then the other 4 that you mentioned in the 4. But I as you look at that on paper, yeah, you're kind of dealing with a tougher group than maybe others are. Although that's what's fun about this league. is that Iowa State's down right now. 2 years ago, they were playing for the Big 12 championship and ranked in the top 10 or 15. Cincinnati is really down right now. 2 or 3 years ago, they were in the college football playoff. Central Florida is up right now. They've been up for a while. There's no guarantee that they stay there. It's just hard to lock some of this in because there's ebbs and flows here. Kansas State's rolling right now. There was a time when they were average. Kansas has been the worst team in the league for years, and all of a sudden they've got the player of the year preseason. They're going to be a nightmare to play against. So it's hard to kind of nail it down and figure out what is fair because you're just taking a snapshot.
Well, and the one you didn't mention in West Virginia, it's not like they've never won a game or had a good season before. Good grief, they're just in a lull. But that could become more interesting if UCF. I don't have much faith in Cincinnati. Some of their big success was obviously not on this level. And UCF, well done, great, but it's your first time to meet a major street, so let's see what you do with it. But if UCF and West Virginia really provide some competitive balance by improving what's going on in Morgantown and maybe sustaining, but taking it to a higher level in Orlando, that could really be an interesting league because right now it does seem very Western heavy as far as what you would expect out of Oklahoma, Kansas, the state of Texas, and possibly the state of Utah, obviously, with the Utes coming in with the trophies that they've gotten recently. So let us know in the YouTube comments what you're thinking. Pod person, divisions, quadrants, something that we have not mentioned here today. I do enjoy a divisional format that allows you the opportunity to group as the Hateful Eight and the Grateful Eight, just because that's hilarious. But competitively, I don't know if it'd be all that balanced. So let us know what you're thinking in the YouTube comments where you agree or disagree.
What I'm concerned about there from a Texas Tech standpoint, though, is if you get away from in any way, if you're not looped in with the Metroplex schools in Oklahoma State, I don't think that's best for you. It may be in some ways more difficult of a road depending on how it's set up, but I also think that's what the fans care about the most.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, keeps some interest in your football program and keeps you selling season tickets. And those four schools need to be playing each other all the time, in my opinion. I don't feel that way about Houston or anybody else other than those three. But if you lose that, boy, you're just kind of like you're just in the harbor, just kind of floating away, and you don't really have any general direction or whatever. And I just think that needs to be a component with however it works out. That would be most important to me for Texas Tech. And I think those programs are worthy of playing every year because we know they're going to be salty and good and all those kinds of things for the most part.
You've got battles with them in season and out of season. So I think you'd love to compete with them and have a chance maybe to make your pitch on the scoreboard to a recruit in the stand or something like that may be considering the Bears, the Red Raiders, the Frogs, and different points in between. It'll come to pass soon enough. Like you said, they don't have just an eternity here to mull this over, and there will not be a perfect solution. So we will moan and groan, cuss and discuss whenever that day does come to pass. Certainly will be some pros and cons. That is a guarantee. Okay, the opposite of a guarantee. Let's talk preseason rankings. Dead ahead. We already got into a coaches poll earlier this week, Chris. We hadn't even got the AP poll yet. That's next Monday. Just one voters poll has gotten folks so riled up. The Red Raiders are like Uncle Buck's hat. Shout out to John Candy. Just the sight of us infuriates some people. They just hate the sight of little old Texas Tech being on the list, but not Brett McMurphy. He's got eyes for the red and black in 2023. We will explain and have more on it next on Locked On Texas Tech. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book and the official sports book of Locked On. And football season is almost here. And right now, FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Today, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner at FanDuel.com/LockedOn, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and then you're getting bonus bets for every dub they pick up as the season rolls on. Then you can use those bonus bets on spreads, over-unders, player props, and much, much more. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn and start earning bonus bets right now with America's #1 sportsbook and the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network at FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Thanks for making Locked On Texas Tech a part of your day, whenever, wherever, however you're making it happen. We appreciate it. Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts if you haven't so far, so you never miss an episode. With Chris, I'm Casey. As for these Red Raiders in 2023, we knew there would be some preseason love, Chris. We've seen that come to pass to a degree with the first coaches poll release. Number 24 is where the Red Raiders come in there. We have not seen the AP poll yet. We have only seen a ballot cast. There are some others who have released theirs since, but our guy Brett McMurphy of the Action Network was turning some heads as he decided to release his this week on Twitter, and he had the good guys. Texas Tech at number 11 in the nation. Now, this is following an offseason prediction of Tech meeting Alabama in the Cotton Bowl from Brett McMurphy. This is following a more recent prediction of Tech meeting Alabama, I think, in the Peach Bowl. He really wants a rematch of that 2005 Cotton Bowl, I guess. He's mad about the textbook scandal. So are we, Brett. We want another crack at him. Brett McMurphy is showing love to the Red Raiders, Chris, and in the biggest way imaginable so far, just on the cusp of the top 10, my man. How'd that catch you?
I've had Brett on the radio show before when we were doing that back in the day. He's a great reporter. He's worked for a variety of different networks. He's widely respected, worked for ESPN. I worked for the Action Network. And
he's got cred.
Yeah, he does have cred. And he's one of those that covers college football 365 days a year.
Yeah.
And while he doesn't, his opinion certainly carries a lot of weight, most of these guys, they talk to enough people that their opinion is informed. And again, it depends on who they talk to. In some cases, it can be when they talk to them. But I'd be willing to bet he's heard a lot of feedback about to formulate this opinion. Because Texas Tech was way up there. I think Penn State was way up there. Oregon State was way up there. Texas was a bit lower. Oregon was a bit lower. I mean, so it's just, but you gotta put them in order, and you gotta go with what you think that it's going to look like. And again, is this what he thinks it is right now? Is this a prediction of what it'll look like at the end of the year? I mean, I don't know exactly what the criteria is on an AP vote, but I always look at it personally as this is what I think it is right now, and then it changes week to week, as games are played and all that. But a lot of criticism, a lot of googly eyes being offered up toward Brett for the Texas Tech part of it that I've seen. A lot of people have an issue with it and are bothered by it because you've kind of upset the apple cart. You're not. It's like, which one of these is not like the other, like the old Sesame Street thing. Well, you're the one that's not usually there in the top 25 period, much less in the top 15. And so I think people, kind of have an issue with it. It's much easier. And Brett, to his credit, he has stuck to his guns the entire offseason. Yeah. And there's been nothing that he hasn't swayed. He's willing to sit there and be criticized. And he even wrote before that, that ballot was released, hey, be easy on me, or hey, sorry if I disappointed you. But he's been called a clown and all kinds of stuff for the Texas Tech selection. But this is what happens with voters, man. You just get called names. You can't please everybody. Georgia's number one, and then that's when the fighting starts.
Plenty of them deserve it, by the way. There are plenty of clowns that have an AP vote.
What I think is fascinating, and it goes along the lines of some of the conversations we've had, is
first, today's episode brought to you by Birddogs, making you look good, feel great with the most versatile shorts in the world. They're fitting slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you that sculpted look you're after. Look down at your legs right now. Sculpted, I doubt it. What do they look like? A pile of crushed beer cans? Not with Birddogs. Way more flexible than stiff, restricting shorts you've had before, thanks to their cloud knit fabric. And of course, as always, that's organic, cage-free clouds. It stretches to give you movement without sacrificing that slimmer fit. And don't forget about their anti-stink, sweat-wicking fabric, keeping you cool and dry all day long. Sent me some joggers in the mail. So soft, I threw away my pillow, and I just sleep on the joggers now. Even stood outside on a 100-degree West Texas day. Just had my wife come out and check periodically how dry and cool my undercarriage still was. And you could say she was stunned. And I think it even had something to do with the pants. though I can't say for sure. But what I can say for sure is if you head to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege or you enter the promo code LockedOnCollege, you're getting a free hat with every order. That's birddogs.com/lockedoncollege or the promo code LockedOnCollege for a free hat with every order. And get into something today you won't want to ever take off, guaranteed, at birddogs.com/lockedoncollege.
What I think is fascinating, and it goes along the lines of some of the conversations we've had, is Joey, Coach Blanchard. I mean, a lot of Tech staff members have seen, because Brett's not the only one. There's a variety of top 25 polls. Locked On did one. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of networks that do one. People are doing them individual. But if there's any that show Texas Tech in the top 25, Joey and Coach Blanchard and others, they're retweeting it. They're like, hey, I mean, they're like pushing it out there into the ether. And it just goes back to the whole, like, they're embracing these expectations. It's like that Rex Ryan clip we listened to, under the radar. Yeah, whoop-de-doo, screw that. Like, expectations are high. Get used to it. This is the world we're going to live in. Have some confidence. Yeah, we're ranked in the top 25. We're going to tell everybody about it. Deal with it. That's kind of the mentality that they want to have. So, again, it's like the analogy about running toward the light in the tunnel, not running away from it, running right toward it. And kudos to Brett McMurphy for kind of sticking his neck out, because that's maybe the highest I've seen.
It's the highest I've seen.
Yeah, the 20, 21, 23, 24 range, that's kind of the sweet spot. Did a radio interview on the West Coast the other day. They were doing a top 25. They had the Red Raiders at 25th. I mean, that's kind of what I've heard a lot, but 11 is that's up there. But maybe well-deserved. And obviously Brett feels that way, because I promise you, he talked to a lot of people before forming his entire opinion. And that's why he's such a good reporter.
Yeah, and I'm just sitting here as a study in hypocrisy, because I'm thinking, if you don't love the love, you're yellow. I want to be a guy that loves the love. I want to root for a team and program that is fine with the spotlight. It phases them not in the slightest. So there's one side of me. And then there's the second side of me that's been a Red Raider all my life. And I think about not screwing it up in week 1 so we can just have a good party in week 2 when the Ducks come to town. It's day by day, Chris, because inch by inch, life is a cinch. Yard by yard, life is hard.
I get it. I think that the Tech fan is genuinely conflicted. I think some are enjoying and eating this up. And then the ones that have PTSD from years past, whether that be in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, it doesn't matter. Everybody's got their struggle moment, if you will. And I think those people are like, ugh, because it's you've been heartbroken before, you've been hurt, but the head coach is basically saying, no, man, yeah, like this is a new era. Sheriff, right there, see the badge? It says 806 on it. Like, right. we embrace all of this, and you should too. Don't be scared if you're scared by a dog, and by bird dogs too, as we heard earlier. But so that's what, because trust me, as I see this, I'm like, oh man, we're the annoying kid in the room now. Like we're like the Red Raiders are like the guy that got invited to the party. And there's like, who invited this guy? Yeah, it's me. I'm here. And so I've been kind of conflicted a bit there too, just watching it play out. Because again, we all have PTSD, but I mean, I'm taking the cue from the head coach, man, and have some confidence about yourself. If you're out there and you're listening and you're kind of a bit gun shy by the expectations, don't be. And put your heart out there, man. It's okay to have it broken. That's why we love sports so much. That's what makes it so much fun. Because if it's not broken, that's what makes winning and like when you overcome, like so freaking great. I mean, freaking great.
Yeah, and you're talking to a man who's not afraid to be at a party that I am not invited to, and that's why somebody out there has got me
no doubt
videotape at their wedding giving a speech, and that's the first time and last time we were ever in one another's company. But I'm okay with playing that role, Chris, and I really feel like if Texas Tech has got any momentum whatsoever, you run with it. I mean, think about what the previous decade was. Good grief. Why shy away from it? Because we know what the experience is to not be included and things like that. So enjoy it while you can.
The decade of suck.
Yeah, and while you got it, better flaunt it.
Yeah, I think it's just been kind of fascinating to watch this, and it's just going to kind of ramp up a bit. I think as the weeks go along, and that's why that Wyoming game is huge, and that's why the Oregon game is going to be massive for the perception of your program. Yes, win-loss record. Yes, the actual result of that game. But that Oregon game, it's just setting up for a game about really the perception and the direction of your program. And I hate putting too much on it, but all this talk, there's going to be so many folks that point at McMurphy or whoever and go, told you so. they were not ready for prime time, and that's not necessarily fair, but that's how the game goes. Because you're trending up, but this is just how it goes. There's like one of these. Remember the Baylor game last year, and it was kind of building to this crescendo. And if you'd gotten over that hump, it's like look out, and you dropped it, and not in a good way. It was your worst game of the entire season, and then it was just kind of you felt like, oh man. You had all eyes on you, primetime game, Mahomes here, and then you're like, okay, can we get it back? And I don't want to say that that's how that Oregon game is going to be, but in many ways, it's going to come really early this year, and there'll be a big payoff now if you get it done, and you won't necessarily have accomplished anything, but boy, a lot of things kind of go away if you don't get that get a result on that day.
Yeah, I was trying to remember the last time you had any preseason hype, that being 2008, and how long into the season it took for you to have any type of validation. And I know that, like the Nevada game was kind of tricky, but that wasn't a big one or a validating game, even though it was a little trickier than anticipated. It wasn't until October 4th, you went to Manhattan, Ron Prince era, they stunk. You beat them by 30. Nebraska comes to your house October 11th. You go to College Station October 18th. It was like mid-October, Chris, till you really had to put your set on the table and say, okay, this is what we are. I mean, you had like a month and a half ramp up almost to get verified, so to speak. This time around, you have you got about 7 days. So best of luck.
Yeah, and I think that score, because that's what I remember about that Nevada game. I think I could be slightly off here, but I think that game, the final score is like something like 35-19. You ended up winning. You kind of pulled away late. Eric Morris had a punt return and all that. But I remember after that game was over, a lot of the fans were like, I don't know if we're any good or not. Because it at some point it becomes a beauty contest. It's not if you win, it's how you win. These are the times that Nick Saban's Alabama teams and now Kirby Smart's Georgia teams are living in. Winning sometimes is not enough. It's like you got to beat the whatever out of people and like do it in commanding fashion, all that stuff, but you're not there yet anywhere close. But I just remember that year I was like, dude, you just won by 16 points on the road against a pretty good Nevada team. And yet to some, it was like it wasn't good enough. They didn't win the beauty pageant part of it because it didn't look as good. But we'll see. And maybe the Wyoming game's that way this year. I don't really care. You can win every game by half a point all year long, and I'll salute and move on. Yeah. And I'll see you in Arlington at the 1st of December.
All right, and I'll see you for another one to wrap up the week coming up tomorrow, Chris. Got plenty to get to, and appreciate the time as always, sir. Man. Looking forward to it. Keep
hope alive. Absolutely.
And subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. We'll see you right back here for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.